Okay, good.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tyler Barker. I serve as a coordinator within the Office of Parent and Family Programs. I would like to welcome you once again to our What's Buzzin at Georgia series. We would like to thank you for sticking with us this semester. We started a brand new webinar series, got a lot of great reviews from it, and it's something that we found very helpful to parents and family members in terms of supporting their students. Today we are here joined by two of our colleagues to talk about a very important topic, welcoming your students back home over the winter break. As you can imagine, this will be an unusual winter break compared to most, as college students will have more time at home than they've had on a winter break in the years past due to the pandemic. However, we are here to just talk about some mental health, some ways to support your student during that time, and just how to really just have a good time and embrace your students being back home for the winter season. And so without further ado, if you give me one moment, I will upload the PowerPoint presentation and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Carla Bradley. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dr. Carla Bradley, who serves as the director of our counseling center.
Good afternoon, parents. I'm Carla Bradley, and I direct the Georgia Tech Counseling Center. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon, along with my colleague, Dr. Tiffiny Hughes-Troutman. I'll be speaking to you for a little while, and then she will be speaking, and we'll kind of tag team our way through this. I know that the chat box is being monitored in the background, and we're happy to both present as well as have some dialogue with you. So we wanted to focus today on welcoming students back home after the break, and just being very practical to suggest that planning the trip home can include discussing expectations with your student before they return home. And so this may be around talking about academic performance, just getting a sense for how they may be feeling about the semester as it's progressed, what the family and parenting wishes are around discussing grades or not. Just letting your student know and listening to your student as the two of you exchange points of view about how to handle an area that can be very delicate at times. And also times for great appreciation of each other, what your student's been able to do here. Other similar kinds of areas, as you know from parenting for these many years, have to do with finances, curfews and safe contact amidst a pandemic with friends, and the frequency of what you encourage your student to do or not do around phone calls, emails, and online time. Now, all of these areas are probably very familiar to you as parents, and you may find that in a developmentally appropriate fashion, your student is wanting to talk about some of these, maybe even renegotiate some of these. And having that willingness to listen, the willingness to acknowledge the student's growth and new independence may help move through these areas. Of course, you want to talk about a plan to protect the health of your student, your family, and your community. And acknowledging the fact that Georgia Tech is a STEM school, we're sure that science will ground some of those conversations and help make the kinds of responsible choices that your student and everyone surrounding students here on campus has been encouraged to make throughout this semester. Students have done enormously well on that. And we're very proud of them and believe that they will most likely wish to tell you about their experiences and maintain those kinds of behaviors that are health protecting. You may wish to prepare family members, grandparents, younger siblings, who haven't seen your student for some possible changes. They've been through an interesting experience as a college student and an incredibly interesting and at times very difficult experience attempting to be a college student amidst a pandemic. And so we can't predict exactly how those changes will emerge, but they tend to cluster on either side of continuums like a sense of independence, a sense of being responsible or in charge. So that independence may, pardon me, present itself as very different ideas about what family time may look like or what rights or privileges students may lay claim to. On the other side of that continuum, you may see students who wish to kind of rest and restore and are just happy to be in the comfort of their families, are not particularly asserting major changes in thought or attitude or behavior, and are just happy to be home and kind of hibernate a little bit. And then you may wish to prepare yourself as well as family members for potential changes that you may see in your student. And again, we can't predict exactly what those are. I think any kinds of predictions would be closer on point if we weren't amidst a national pandemic, because we would be talking about things like greater sense of independence and autonomy. We might also be talking about coming home from being in a very similar atmosphere, maybe in the sense of the levels of intellectual brightness and achievement, and your student may have been around that in concentrated doses for the first time in their academic career, and that may precipitate some differences that you may see. Sometimes in the direction of a sense of accomplishment, sometimes in the direction of a sense of uncertainty in a way that you hadn't seen from your student before. So just try to prepare yourself for the gamut, and really the best advice here is being curious and warm and interested in what your student has to say and allowing them to unfold their experiences over time. So if we could take the next slide, please. So once your student is at home, they may have concerns about family issues or adjusting to routines. It may be very different living back with a sibling or being an only child after coming out of a single room situation or a roommate situation, doing so many things by remote. Again, reinforce those safe practices and invite your student to participate in the conversation. Talk about what campus has been like and what practices have been engaged in here, and the pride that Georgia Tech can take in those practices and in grounding them in very innovative testing programs that have helped keep campus safe. Really listen to your student about that and encourage them to continue those safe behaviors. Allowing for some negotiation on topics about friends or bedtimes or other kinds of routines that may have been in place when the student left for school, and now the student may wish to renegotiate a little bit. We do encourage you to encourage your student to return to those fundamentals if they've strayed away from them, of the importance of rest, relaxation, appropriate levels of sleep, good eating, good nutritional eating, getting real-time contact if possible, and moving away from the screen as much as they've been perhaps during their tenure here across the semester. Do expect that your student may be tired having gone through a very rigorous academic semester and a very interesting and difficult time for us nationally and on the planet with this global pandemic. And so we encourage you to balance autonomy with family responsibilities and appointments and allow the student to do some resting and recovering. So I hope that's been some helpful information. And my colleague, Dr. Hughes-Troutman, is going to speak to you now about communicating.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. And again, welcome parents and families as we share more tips and resources on how to prepare you and your family for your students' return back home over the break. And as Dr. Bradley has mentioned, we realize that it's been an unprecedented time for you and for your students. In fact, some of your students may have already been at home with you. They may actually have a majority of residential classes. So it may just be preparing for the end of the semester. But certainly, as we continue to share some tips with you, communication is key. We want to emphasize the importance of keeping that line of communication open with your student, however that looks like for them. And the first, I think, main point is to listen to their stories and their perspective on how that fall semester went for them. If you think back to early August, everyone had hopes and dreams about what that semester would look like, even in the midst of the pandemic. But just allow them the opportunity in an open-ended way to share how it went for them and what their disappointments were, what their highs were, and how they think that they went, and just to be open to hearing whatever they have to share as they reflect upon that semester. Again, even if you were living in the same space with them, it's really a great time to reflect back on how the term went and what they look forward to in the spring. Engaging in good conversation is critical. And again, the key here is not to ask closed-ended questions that would elicit a yes or no, but evocative, open questions around, how do you think this went for you? And share your story and perspective. How have you believe that you've changed over the course of the term? How are you doing? What things are you looking forward to? What things are disappointing to you? Helping them to really think critically and find their solutions to struggles or challenges. So if they found that they were challenged by a particular course or a couple of courses, or just really trying to cope with the isolation and loneliness of the pandemic, thinking about what can we do now as we think forward to the spring term to help creatively to find a solution to help your student thrive with their well-being or a better fit. They may be looking earlier at academic tutoring or seeking out support from some of our mental health resources. It's certainly critical to nurture your student and show that you care in unique ways. So nurturing is not one size fits all. It's not necessarily trying to hug your adult child or to say things. It may just be showing that you care in ways that only you know that they're going to appreciate. Being there for them, reaching out to them, bonding in ways that you always have. But really that nurturing is so important. As Dr. Bradley mentioned, they may be tired. You may be surprised to find that you have a different young adult child return back home. So much growth and development has occurred over a couple of months, you would be surprised. So just being nurturing, being kind to yourselves and to them. Reminding your student that you will always love and care for them unconditionally is critical. They may disagree with you, you may disagree with them. It's not about a right or wrong. And certainly it's not about them having a perfect existence in college. So they will make mistakes, we all do. But reminding them that you're going to love them, you're going to be there for them, you may not agree with them, but you're going to support them is so critical for your student. And finally, being present during those conversations. So not having a conversation when you're distracted or when you have work or other things going on. Being present in the moment, suspending judgment, absolutely. And so really trying to be open to what you hear and what they're sharing and reading those nonverbals. So they may not be communicating verbally, but are they looking away? Are they looking more despondent? Are they trying to communicate something to you again, non-verbally, it's really a critical part of those communication skills. And we really want you to make the most of that time. As time goes by so quickly, it's a critical point, that juncture between this term and the spring semester. And so as we look at the next slide and moving on to tips to really foster and promote that sense of safety and well-being. Again, that safety and well-being is critical for a lot of reasons. First, it's related to the pandemic, of course. We know that you want to continue to foster and promote practices that keep them safe and healthy, but also we're talking about holistic well-being for our students and making sure that they thrive in so many dimensions of their life. And so one part of that is encouraging them to keep up what they were participating in the fall that helped them to be happy and to flourish. So if they were doing a favorite hobby, help them to keep that up. For instance, let's say that they were, having a morning run and jog, due to the pandemic, maybe they weren't able to go to breakfast with friends or to work out in close spaces. So encourage them to keep that morning run up, or whatever they like to do. Physical activity certainly is a big part of health and well-being promotion, because physical activity keeps them healthy. It helps to promote a better and happier mood. It helps them in many ways to continue that social connectedness and engagement. And just wonderful to be outside, to breathe fresh air, to see sunshine, to be in a different element. Many of our students, who may have been on campus or at home, were inside a lot, closely tied to their screens, obviously for instructional purposes or even for meetings. So a lot of what we've been doing has been virtual. So that physical activity, being outside, is so important for them. As I've mentioned, and quality time. Maybe you can ask to join them for that run, or to take a walk, or to do yoga outside. All wonderful ways to promote their safety and well-being. Of course, it's important to keep up physical distancing and mask wearing practices. Georgia Tech has had remarkable stories of how that's gone well this term, and we want to make sure to keep that up so that we can keep it going when students return back to campus. That will continue in the spring. We want to make sure that they have a safe experience at home. Over the break, there's a lot of traditions and opportunities to have shared meals and shared experiences, but please think about the safety of your family and community and of your student. And finally, you may notice signs of distress in your student, and we won't go through all of that because we know that you know your student. If you have questions, though, about noticing certain signs of distress, we can reach out to any of our campus offices to consult with you. But this is the time to help connect with campus resources. We're going to talk a bit about the continued availability of campus resources and care, and in the counseling center and other units as well. But all of that is about the holistic promotion of safety and well-being. It's not just helping your student to be a good student to make perfect grades. It's not just about helping them to be socially engaged. It's not just about their physical safety. It's not just about their well-being spiritually. It's about the alignment of that on many dimensions. So just a couple of points to help you understand how much we emphasize safety and well-being and the role that you can play in helping that to happen over the break. I'm not sure how many of you were able to join us for our September webinar on mental health and well-being. So we just wanted to make sure that you had some information on our services. So we're going to include information today to help highlight how your student can access services on campus. And this diagram provides a visual for you. As you will see, CARE is the central point of access for mental health resources and services on and off campus. And we refer to a number of units, including health initiatives, which provides health education, community nutrition, and sexual violence prevention and victim survivor support. We refer to STAMPS Psychiatry, which is a part of the STAMPS Health Services Center, And they provide psychiatric consultation, med management, case management, as well as other supportive resources. The Georgia Tech Counseling Center, Dr. Bradley serves as director of that center, and they provide a wide menu of services, including counseling, number of forms of counseling, workshops, outreach, and emergency coverage. And CARE also provides referrals to a number of off-campus resources that would include individual counseling and psychiatry. So just an overview picture of how our system works and how we collaborate. Moving on to the next slide. So a little bit more information about CARE. Again, we are the central point of access for our mental health and well-being resources. We're comprised of a multidisciplinary team of professionals. I'm a psychologist, and my staff are licensed professional counselors and social workers. We are a confidential office, and our goal is to reduce barriers and obstacles in terms of students finding that correct fit. So we're really doing the assessment and referral and follow-up case management to help students thrive and become well holistically. Next slide, please. We serve undergraduate and graduate students who are enrolled in a degree-seeking program here at Georgia Tech. So sometimes students may know that they need to come to CARE. Some students have had experience with therapy or with psychiatry in the past, and they come knowing that. Other students don't know, so our motto is really just come to CARE. We can help to point you in that right direction through the provision of a confidential assessment. We also consult with faculty and staff, as well as families as well, who meet with students who could benefit from well-being support. So that consultation remains continuously. Next slide, please. And Dr. Bradley is going to share more about the counseling center's scope of services and a little bit more about their center and operations. So I'll turn it back over to her.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hughes-Troutman. So to give you a sense of an overview of the center, we are a fully functioning mental health counseling center and offer the broad range of services that are typically offered on campuses across the nation. Our counseling center is comprised of professional staff that includes licensed psychologists, licensed professional counselors, and social workers. I'm particularly proud of heading up a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary team. What we know from the research in business and in engineering is that cross-functional teams are stronger. And I have a very, very strong staff here, of which I'm extremely proud. And I think that our interdisciplinary focus is one of our great strengths. We also have a training program, and we teach and train the next generation. So that includes doctoral interns and advanced practicum students. We are accredited by the International Association of Counseling Services. IACS is the standard bearer for counseling center accreditation across the nation. And we use a short-term model for individual counseling. It's important to note there that we're saying individual counseling. Students who come from a private practice model, maybe they've been in counseling throughout high school with a private practitioner, that's a wonderful support. And we are certainly able to assist students in connecting with that same kind of support in the community. We are not able to provide that level of once a week, the traditional model of once a week individual counseling for however many months or years an individual may find that to be helpful. For obvious reasons of staff-student ratio, we can't do that over time. But we do follow, again, the national trend is a shorter-term model, and in my mind, short-term counseling is something in the vicinity of a semester. So it generally is 8 to 16 sessions. Although I will say that the modal number of sessions across the nation is slightly more than one. And so I think what that can tell us is that when we have students who come into CARE, for example, and go through a very thorough assessment process there, They often do the kind of problem solving and getting the needs of the moment met in such a way that they can go on up the road, knowing that the service is here when they need it next, but maybe not needing to move into some of our other service offerings. I'd also like to say that group treatment, group therapy, is a model that's used for students for a variety of reasons, sometimes to increase interpersonal contact, support, skill, validation, sometimes to take a particular single issue, like students who are grieving, for example, or students who are members of traditionally underrepresented groups, and have a safe space for those folks to come together to focus on the particular issue or concerns that are of interest to them. What we know from the psychotherapy research is that individual and group therapy come out neck and neck in terms of research in terms of clinical efficacy. And so when CARE advises that a group is probably the best modality for your student, that recommendation comes from a knowledge that these modalities that we offer are very effective, and individual counseling and group counseling are virtually equally effective. And the reason I'm staying on that point just a bit is students can sometimes be a little bit shy about the idea of group. They don't know what to expect. Group counseling is usually done with a number of usually 6 clients, plus or minus 2 generally, and 2 co-facilitators. And in non-pandemic times, it's typically offered in a small, very comfortable room here in the counseling center. So it's very homey, it's very conversational, and very helpful for students' growth. So we do encourage you to know about that particular modality because it is not a brief model for us. We have some groups that have been operating for years at a time, and students come in and go out of those groups as needed. Next slide, please. So again, these types of client services that we offer include individual and group. Couples counseling is done when one pair is an enrolled degree-seeking student. Testing and assessment services, referral to in-house and external additional services. Most referral is managed in GT Care, but occasionally as we're counseling a student, some of their treatment needs may change, and so we also offer a conversation with them about what's the next right thing or the next right step in their process. We consult for faculty, staff, and are available to parents who may wish to call in with a specific concern about a student. Let me say about that as you most of the folks are aware, that counseling is a very private process, and this is the one of the parenting shifts when your student comes to school. If they are 18 or over, their counseling experience is so private that it's protected by law. And a student, a counselor must have a signed release of information to discuss the specifics of a particular student with a parent. Now, certainly counselors can listen to information that parents may wish to offer, but it's actually a violation of the law for a counselor to acknowledge whether a student is or is not a client, even if the student themselves have said, oh, I see Dr. Bradley in the counseling center. Well, that's a whole lot of information for the parent, but the counselor cannot affirm that or even discuss the particulars of it without that release of information. So that can sometimes be frustrating to parents, but if you encourage your student to sign that release, really we are here and want to partner with you in whatever way we can to best serve your student. Keeping in mind that the student may operationalize their right to refuse to allow parent access to their counseling in that more open way. But once again, parents can also always call and reach a triage counselor if there's something on your mind that you'd like to talk about in a general way. We provide outreach to the campus community. It's a very large aspect of our services. We have a thriving satellite program, which I think we may talk about a little bit further on in our slides. And the satellite program, in the event that we don't, satellite program is where a counselor is hosted in an academic department. Their office is hosted there within that academic department, but they are members of the counseling center staff. And this is a pilot program that began with 3 counselors placed in 2 of our 6 schools. And we're very hopeful. In fact, we were well on track before the pandemic hit to expand that program to have a counselor hosted in each of the academic schools. It just helps students manage the busyness of their day. It also helps kind of normalize the process of doing some problem solving conversations with licensed mental health professionals right there in the academic department. And we also make sure that those offices are private, both accessible and private. We provide emergency coverage. We have emergency folks. We have coverage backup during our regular hours. After hours, we have an after hours emergency care service that happens via the phone. And we also have a number of online self-help resources on our website, which I encourage you to visit and look over. And the next slide, please. And very quickly, to drill down into our services just a little more, we have a Let's Talk program, which is a walk-in consultation. No paperwork, no records, just problem solving, usually a one and done conversation with a counselor. Our mindfulness program. Mindfulness has incredible research efficacy for helping with the regulation of emotion, particularly anxiety. We have a program where we teach mindfulness. We do wellness workshops on a weekly basis. We have a collegiate recovery program, which is designed to support students in early recovery from alcohol and substance use, giving them a safe way and a group of like-minded folks who are seeking both to recover from a difficult and at times destructive relationship with drugs and alcohol and focus their energies and their potential on being students here at Georgia Tech while remaining abstinent and or sober. We have mental health screening days, which is a form of outreach to the campus where we invite interested campus members to use some screening tools to take a look at things like their anxiety, levels of depressed mood, relationship with food, relationship with alcohol and other drugs. These are standard kinds of screening days that happen across the country, and they are preventative and prophylactic in nature. So we know that early identification and early treatment assists students in being students and not having other things get in the way in their journey. WellTrack is an online application for tracking anxiety, stress, and depression, free to the campus community to utilize. And so if you have a student who's particularly interested in tracking mood with apps, that's available through the Counseling Center website. We have a suicide prevention and training and prevention and gatekeeper activities program. We offer biofeedback services, obviously not right now in the pandemic, but under normal circumstances, we can provide some real-time heart rate and breath and pulse rate training that assists in the management of strong emotion. These practices can calm the nervous system and reduce stress. And our next slide, please. And this goes back to Dr. Hughes-Troutman.
Certainly, thank you. So we wanted to provide some contact information on how you can access our services. CARE is providing telebehavioral health services We've been doing that since March of this year. But we do want to let you know where we are located physically, because we have a dedicated small team of staff in the office, which is located in the Smith Gall Student Services Building on the first floor. But the main point is that students need to call us to schedule an appointment. Right now, we're scheduling virtual appointments, so if they call us, then they can start that process. We'll then be able to provide links where they'll fill out their paperwork online, and in a secure way. We'll get that and then send them the information to connect with us via our encrypted Blue Jeans platform, or if they prefer not to use the video platform by phone. And our website is there. It has that information. Our hours are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 to 5. On Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 5. Just wanted to reiterate that that we are providing full assessment services to students who are in state in Georgia. Our licenses allow us to do that. If students are located out of state, then we can provide a referral and consultation session by telephone. So our services and care will be available continually. When campus is closed for the winter break, that holiday period, we will not be operating. However, other dates later in December and even early January, we will be operational. So students can call us if you're in a situation where the student wants to call to make that appointment in early January before they get back. We will be open. So that's the contact information on care. And I believe we're turning it back over to Dr. Bradley to talk about the contact information for the counseling center.
Thank you very much. So we also are here in the Flag Building. The counseling center is here in the Flag Building. We're up on the second floor. We are also operating primarily remotely this semester, and that is likely to continue as long as we have the pandemic with us. We have, much to my amazement and pride, been able to operationalize almost all of those services that I just talked with you about by remote. Again, really the only thing that we've not been able to operationalize fully is some aspects of our assessment program where things have to be physically handled, and some aspect on our biofeedback program where things have to be physically handled. Just wanted to drop that in there while I'm talking to you about how to contact us. So you can visit our website. You can call us at our main number there at 404-894-2575. We are in the Smith Gall building. You can also follow us on social media, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, and we're working on our YouTube channel now, revamping a few things, so I would hold off on that visit for just a little while, but we'll be back with you on YouTube shortly. And our next slide, please. There are some emergency resources of a more general nature that we'd like you to know about. We have the number there for campus police, also the Office of the Vice President and Dean of Students, our victim survivor advocate numbers, and then again, on a larger scale, the Georgia Crisis and Access line. This is an after-hours line that you may wish to use, or a student may wish to use. We do have an after-hours service, as I was discussing, and Georgia Crisis and Access Line, or GCAL as it's called, is another safety net, as is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the 1-800-273-TALK. The Trevor Lifeline, again, is a national service that is oriented primarily to LGBTQIA youth. And then Crisis Chat is a chat line that young folks in crisis can use if they are in a situation where they prefer to reach out to someone by text. And if we could have the next slide. Yeah, any questions that have come up in the chat box?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Tiffiny Hughes-Troutman and Dr. Bradley, for that wonderful presentation. So now what we'll do is turn it over to questions. So let's look in the Q&A chat box to see what we have. Will students who live locally be able to get COVID testing on campus during the break? That's a great question. I think Lacey, our director in Parent and Family Programs office has answered that, and that the answer is testing will be open when GT is open. GT is closed for Thanksgiving on the 26th and 27th of November. However, so after that, our campus will be open and operational, and then we'll also be closed for our winter break, which is December 21st through the 25th, and on New Year's Day. Outside of that, I do believe we still will be administering tests to our students if they are local. If my daughter came back to Brazil for the winter break, she needs to do quarantine outside the U.S. when returning in January. Stamps Health Services has shared that this is not a requirement. We are not sure that there will be changes as the winter break goes on, but as of now, no quarantine is needed. We do have a question about the mindfulness classes. How are the mindfulness classes accessed, and are they open to anyone without signing up through the counseling center?
So the course itself is accessed through CARE. So it's one of a variety of things that a student may be recommended to a student to pursue. In addition to that, however, we do have some mindfulness outreach programs that are available on a larger scale. And if you would like, let's see if I can figure out how to access the chat box. I will put you in touch with the person who runs that program. I think I can do that. What you can do is find Dr. Haig's email on our website, and just email him and ask him about the schedule for the remainder of this semester and whether he knows what the schedule might look like next semester for this outreach programming. Otherwise, if you have a student who's very interested in this, please invite them to come in through GT Care, talk a little bit more about what their interest is, and I think they would probably be, if it's a very serious interest, I think they'd be better suited going through the actual program rather than just a one-time seminar or an introductory seminar.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Bradley. Are students also receiving an email on these ideas as well to be helpful at home, to engage with family, and to continue on with family traditions? Do either one of you want to take that question?
I'm happy to address that great question because multiple modes of communication are always so helpful. As you're receiving that, we want to make sure that students do. So CARE and the Counseling Center, we don't send emails to students, but we do have numerous modes of communication channels in which we just try to spread the word. Dr. Bradley talked about, for instance, the multiple modes of social media that the Counseling Center is engaged in. So they push out messages, for instance, through Twitter that encompass all of that. CARE has some smaller outreach programs. We have a Coffee with CARE program that that students have access to that will certainly provide educational and psychoeducational content on messages. We started a new CARE ambassador program, so these are students who help us to spread those messages. As an assessment office, we don't have resources for a lot of non-clinical things. We don't have an outreach program because of our role and our scope, but that is some way And I just also wanted to make an acknowledgement for the Division of Student Life. Here and the Counseling Center are part of the Division of Student Life, as you know. And they are certainly promoting numerous channels for communication and messaging. So for instance, parent and family programs, they have great newsletters that have numerous tips. Their most recent one had an article, I believe, from the Counseling Center that talked about how student engagement through student life, of course, sends messages and touch points, I would say, on a number of issues as well. So thank you for that really excellent question. We want to make sure that students get the messages in ways that they'll read them and that they'll respond to them. So I just wanted to mention that. It's a couple of pieces of information on that question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hughes-Troutman. I have another question. If my student normally is very open and we have a great relationship and they're very communicative, but for some reason they went to college and they came home and they're a little bit more reserved, how as a parent can you give me some advice about how to get them to kind of open up? Are they just changing? Are they kind of just maturing, keeping thoughts to themselves, or should I be worried that like something's wrong? Or Carla, did you want to take?
That's a wonderful question. I imagine we both have thoughts about that. So that's a kind of an unanswerable question in the sense of course, we want to be reassuring that you have a long history of a good, solid relationship with your student, and you will find your way through these changes. But to know exactly what they are based on the description offered, it's kind of hard to do without a longer, maybe a longer conversation with someone might be helpful. But I would suggest that you give the student some space while also suggesting that maybe you and your student can do an individual activity together. And just let them know that you miss them and you want to spend some time with them without indicating that there's anything that's concerning you. And see if maybe after some pleasant time together, the conversation can move in the direction of just asking a little bit more about how they are. And that you've noticed a little bit of change and you want to respect it. At the same time, you're here for them. Would like to understand if there's anything that they need that's supportive that you might be able to offer. Those are some thoughts from the top of my mind. I wonder, Dr. Hughes-Troutman may be able to offer some additional thoughts.
I absolutely agree, Dr. Bradley, that it's a challenging question. It's also a very good question because we've both alluded to the fact that you may see changes in your students. So the obvious question is, well, if we're expected maybe perhaps to see some changes, what's a change that may be more concerning or not? And I just really want to reemphasize the fact that, again, you know your child, and it will fall back on that relationship in your communication. And sometimes it may take a little bit more time. You may not know immediately, but after that, opportunity to spend a little bit of private time and to just reach out and offer the opportunity to connect and to share. They will likely come back to you when they're ready. It will become more apparent to you. I will say that over time. So you may not immediately know. Having said that, I will say that if it's mid to late January and you're in the space of still being concerned, if you feel like the student needs to reach out, if you want to consult on how to best support them, then you can call CARE certainly as that kind of the first point of access, or the counseling center if you so desire. Both of our departments have staff that are incredibly supportive. I'm also very proud of the CARE staff in terms of consulting with families within the confines of our operations, and of course respecting confidentiality. But we will consult generally hopefully to help answer the question. So I would just add that I do thank you again for that excellent question.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you all both for tackling that. Thank you all did excellent. Dr. Bradley, if you can talk a little bit more about the group counseling, and in terms of just some benefits in regards to that versus individual counseling, especially for students who may be extroverted, kind of socialists, and students who may kind of feed off other people and are more willing to open up.
Sure, thank you. So that's interesting because I often think about group from the perspective of more introverted students.
Yeah, or either way. Yeah.
It's a wonderful question to think about it from the perspective of an extroverted student. Because one of the challenges for the co-therapy team in group therapy is to encourage folks in a group to develop a sense of togetherness in a way that has a rhythm that allows for the talking time to be shared. And so you can imagine that with an introverted student, they might be less risk-taking or less vocal in the group. With an extroverted student, they may be more vocal. So it's kind of, in some ways, it's a challenge for the therapy team, the co-therapy team, to assist the group in forming around norms in its shared mission to be of assistance to each other. And so I think that in the first stages of a group's formation, the first 3-4 weeks, maybe sometimes a little longer, people just like, if you can imagine, I'm trying to think now about a group activity that we can relate to coming together on. Let's say that the neighborhood is getting together on a Saturday morning to do a neighborhood task, right? Like paint some curbsides or do some pickup or hold a multi-neighborhood garage sale. And these may be folks who know each other casually, or they may be folks from different parts of the neighborhood who don't know each other. And when you think about how human beings interact with one another, we take a little time to kind of warm up. But it's very helpful if we're focused around a shared mission. And so again, sometimes those things, like the silly garage sale example I'm using right now, can unfold in a kind of a predictable fashion, where people actually, through sharing that common purpose, enhance one another's lives and have an enjoyable time as they're doing it and accomplish a common goal. And this is really kind of the core of the group therapy process. It's more psychologically minded. Their students aren't going in to do a task like a garage sale or a student project, but they're going in for the purpose of learning something about self and other. And so when a student is not sharing the talking time in a more egalitarian way, maybe, or maybe not acknowledging what's going on, that's keeping them more silent or that's keeping them more active, really is part of the group process for the group itself and the co-facilitators to kind of bring those norms around to encompass everyone. And again, in psychology terms, we talk about having a holding environment. That's something that you know about in your own families. It's that experience of shared warmth and connection and sense of togetherness. Those things emerge in a good group process, and that's usually what keeps students coming back. They feel very assisted by those kinds of relationships. So Tyler, I hope I got to the core of the question there.
Yeah.
I know I was talking around parts of it.
No, that was great. That was great. That was awesome. Where does a student pick up the release form?
Yeah, normally in person, but
And I would assume that we're referring to the release of information form.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. So our forms are online now. That's really the beauty of what we have accomplished through telehealth, is that they can request that through their counselor, and we will send that online, and it can be executed online. So if we were physical, they would be hard copies, but forms are all virtual now. which is a great thing for access of information, certainly.
Wonderful thing. And Dr. Hughes-Troutman, we know that Georgia Tech is moving towards more face-to-face interaction in terms of the class offerings. So will CARE be offering any face-to-face or increased face-to-face interactions in the spring in terms of the services, or is that still to be determined?
So we are planning to continue operating in the same fashion as we are now, which is primarily through telebehavioral health. And we really are following the Institute in terms of the instructional model, and and just to keep our community safe. So we are not planning on increasing opportunities for physical assessments. We are a clinical office, and so we have a physical presence on campus, but primarily we're still probably going to be providing those virtually. I would even imagine that that even beyond the spring term, once we have all returned to some semblance of normalcy as we experienced it pre-COVID-19, we're going to retain some telehealth services. We certainly understand that students need that that engagement physically, and as a clinical office, there's great benefit of having that face-to-face personal milieu for a certainly a meaningful experience, and for I would say an efficacious experience. However, telehealth has done a remarkable job of mimicking that. And for some students, it provides greater access to services, students who find that it's just easier to schedule that appointment. So we're going to continue to find that right balance. We've always strived to do that, to find that right balance. We know that students have been isolated and are lonely, and we're going to do our best to be a part of a community that provides that balance to keep them safe, but also to keep them engaged and to make sure our services are continuing.
And Dr. Bradley, just really quickly, thank you, Dr. Hughes-Troutman. Does that apply to your office as well? Pretty much the same concept. You're going to continue the same operation style?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We're following the same model of providing solid service and staying safe, keeping all of us safe while we're doing that.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you both for taking the time out your schedule to meet with us today and just talk about such an amazing topic and an unusual topic due to the pandemic. However, it's much needed. I would like to add that to the parents that, this will be an extended kind of a winter break. However, don't put too much pressure on yourself and your partner, if there is a partner, to kind of figure out all the answers, right away, to learn your students' new habits right away. I think that the extended time can be used as a plus because you do have time to kind of just let things evolve organically and just kind of create a great atmosphere for them to be back home. As a recent college graduate, I can only imagine what the 6 weeks would be like with my family, and I can say that, some weeks the energy may be high from your student. In terms of them just being excited, glad to be home, and then another week may be a little moderate in terms of them missing campus, missing their friends, and them not necessarily exuberating the same energy towards you and your spouse, your partner, as they would on a different week. And so just be mindful of that, and don't let that kind of get you down as a parent. They're just teenagers, they're just young adults just trying to get through their emotions and process things, but we know that they have a great support system by everybody on this call, because you're here, you're eager to learn. And lastly, before we go, just a quick message on behalf of the Office of the President. We're encouraging you to encourage your student to get tested before, at least 2 times before they go home for the winter break. Once again, we're encouraging all students to get tested twice, at least twice before they go home, just for your safety, for their safety, for the people that they're traveling with and their safety. We have the capacity to test 1,500 people per day. So why not just exercise that right, exercise that freedom, and that accessibility to go use our testing. We have a great testing facilities here at Georgia Tech as it relates to COVID-19. For those who may have joined late or would like to view this webinar again, please know this will be recorded on our website, parents.gatech.edu, under the Stay Connected tab, and then you'll go to virtual recordings. We'll have this available within the next 24 hours. So that way you can have it, listen to it again, pass it along to another Georgia Tech mom, dad, uncle, aunt, whatever, and just have that in your back pocket. Please join us tomorrow for a wonderful session by the Georgia Tech Career Center at 12 p.m. The link is on our website as well, which I just mentioned under our PDF. It's almost that time of the year to be talking co-ops, internships, and so what better opportunity than to hear it right from our Georgia Tech Career Center tomorrow at 12 p.m. Via Microsoft Teams. And with that being said, just thank you so much. We wish you a great rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.